Alright, so the G9 by Panasonic, beast of a camera that has slipped under my radar for 2 whole years, released I think in January 2018. It is now January 2020. I bought it and discovered it in December, just gone, 2019. I have no idea how I never even knew it existed, so we're going to take a look at that today. Here we go. Alright, so this is not a technical review. I'm going to be talking to you as a user of a product rather than an expert. Alright, so if you notice, I'm not holding the Panasonic to show you. That is because I am recording with it right now. So you can, this whole video is going to be recorded with this camera so you can see the video quality. I'm currently recording at 4K 25 frames per second, and since I bought this camera I have sold both my Nikon D5100 and my Sony A6300. Yes, I loved that camera. Yes, it did great video and stills, but this Panasonic has just completely made those two cameras redundant for me. I've sold them within a month of owning this Panasonic. That's how good it is. You can see where this review is heading. Spoiler alert, it is going to be a thumbs up for me. So let's get into the details. Alright, so both the monitor and the EVF are awesome, bright and clear, and they give you all the information you need, including histograms, focus peaking, focus magnifying, audio levels, exposure zebras, etc. But for some weird reason, and this is the only thing I don't like about the display, is that it does not tell you your focal length. You have to look at the markings on the lens itself, because it does not tell you anywhere in camera what your focal length is. Whether you're using a fixed or a zoom lens, the only place you can see your focal length is on the lens itself, or it does save it in the metadata of the file. So when you got it on your computer, it does tell you your focal length, but for some weird reason, it does not tell you in camera on the screen. Bit strange, but I'm getting used to that. The camera has lots of customizable buttons and switches and whatnot. You have 3 FN buttons, but you also have 2 front unmarked customizable buttons, which I love the placement of. I think those are genius. And as this camera has a dedicated ISO, white balance, and exposure compensation button already, you don't need to set any of those customizable buttons to those features because they already exist as their own buttons. So you have a lot more options for your customizable buttons than just the usual kind of things you do with them. Also, you can customize the AE lock button and the AF lock button and switch pretty much whatever you want. I also want the front bottom left of the camera, or right if you're looking at it like I am. There is a FN switch, which you can also customize to whatever you want. Now, although the FN switch is good to have, I feel that it could have worked better as a button, maybe a toggle button, because the switch is a little stiff and it's quite hard to use. Personally, I would have preferred a toggle button or something, although a toggle button might be easily pushed by accident. I just find the switch a little bit too stiff. But that's just personal taste. I still love that it's there. The camera has built-in Wi-Fi, which is absolutely a star. Connects every time to your phone. I've not had one single problem trying to connect, whereas I did a lot with my Sony. I could hardly connect to it at all. This one is absolutely brilliant. You literally just press the button, one button. I've set mine to on-screen FN button, because you also have extra FN buttons on the touch screen that you can set. So I've set one of those to Wi-Fi, so I literally just tap it once and then I pull out my phone, open up the Wi-Fi, connect to it, and it connects straight to the phone. You have to download the app. The app is brilliant. You can see it there. There's not a hell of a lot of lag. There is a little bit of lag, but it's still usable for video as I do now. And I can also start and stop recording. I can change the focus settings from face detect to whatever. I can change the white balance, the f-stop, the shutter speed, the shooting mode, the focus mode, the whatever. Everything except for manually focus. I can't manually focus with the app, but everything else I can pretty much change that I want to change. I can't access the menu settings though. I'd have to go to the camera if I want to do something in the menu, but that's fine, that's cool with me. Once you've got the camera set up the way you want, it's all about the F buttons. And as far as shooting video, which is really the only time you're going to use the app for, really, everything you need is going to be there in front of you, because it kind of acts as a monitor and controller at the same time. Camera ergonomics itself is good. Personally, for me, it's a little bit big, but I have small hands, so it may not be a problem for you. It's a lot bigger than my Sony A6300. It's more around the size of my Nikon D5100. So it's not a big camera, but it's not a tiny camera, compact camera like the Sony 6 series. It's somewhere in between. It's nice to hold even with my small hands, but I do find reaching buttons sometimes a little bit awkward. I have to use two hands. I don't like the placement of the playback button. It's in the far left top corner, so I have to use this hand. I can't reach with my thumb on my right hand. I have to get out my other hand. You know, it could be busy doing other things somewhere else, but now I have to bring my hand up and press it there. But I'm getting used to that, and I've actually set the FN2 button to be the playback button anyway, so now it's not a problem at all. It's just a shame to have two playback buttons now. If you use an L bracket like I do, you won't be able to bring the monitor right around to face you, because the L bracket just stops it coming all the way around. It probably rotates about 80 to 85%, but it doesn't come full flush. So that could be an issue maybe, but for me it's not a problem because I just use the app if I'm shooting myself. This camera is weather sealed. I have been out in light rain with it. Of course, you have to have a weather sealed lens as well. I'm using the Leica 12 to 60mm, which is weather sealed, so it was no problem. I haven't spent hours and hours out in the rain with it. Literally, possibly 40 minutes to an hour. I've had no problems with it, but I'm not going to thoroughly test that out and possibly break my camera just to update a video. So that they say it's weather sealed to a certain degree anyway, so we'll take your word for it. Panasonic, we trust you, man. We trust you, man. Focusing is great. The autofocus is nice and quick. It's very quick, in fact. As far as modes, there are the usual suspects here. There's the autofocus single, the autofocus flexible for moving objects, and the autofocus continuous for continual autofocusing, mostly used for video. And of course you've got the manual focus. All work pretty well. They may be not as good as the Sony system, but there are no other camera manufacturers that are, but it's definitely good enough. Face tracking is great, and this camera, since the update, has also got animal tracking. So the camera, if you point it at an animal, will detect that it's an animal and automatically stick a box around it and keep focus on that animal. And it works well. It's pretty impressive, to be fair. So the focus modes are face and eye tracking, self-explanatory. Regular tracking, where you aim at your subject, half press the shutter, and it will lock onto that object, whatever it is, and keep focus on that object. 225 area for uncentered subjects. Custom multi, so you can set the shape of the focus area. One area where the camera focuses on the subject that is in the crosshairs or box, and you can also touch the screen and change that spot if you like. And pinpoint, you half press the shutter and it will magnify the center where the crosshair is to show you your magnification is spot on, or focus. Your focus is spot on. Alright, for stills, the colors are good, skin tones are lovely, and way better than Sony. But I guess that wasn't hard, was it? Eh? Sony? Alright, people complain about the shutter button on this camera being way too sensitive. I did agree at first. I was like, holy hell, crap, what the hell is this? As soon as you go to half press the shutter to gain focus, you've taken the picture. And that was so weird to get used to. I thought maybe there was something wrong, but I noticed that everyone online is saying the same thing. And I think the reason for that though is because keep in mind that this is a micro four thirds camera, so it's a tiny little sensor. And the thing is with small sensors is that you don't get as much light in. So if you're taking shots indoors, then you may have to bring the shutter speed down to say 20. sometimes, and to try and combat camera shake when you press the shutter, they've made it really light and easy to do, so that way you hardly have to put any pressure on the camera at all, and therefore you get less camera shake. Now, I think that is why they did it, and I think it's a brilliant reason for doing it. And to be honest, you do get used to it. If you keep playing around with the camera all day, then you will be used to it within an hour, and then super used to it within the day. In fact, when I used my Sony camera later on that day, I was finding it a bit strange going back to that. So you do get used to it, so don't worry about that. So the sensor on this camera is 20.3 megapixels, which isn't the hugest or the biggest or the bestest out there available, but it is plenty good for what you're gonna need. Unless you're printing billboards, you ain't gonna need more than 20.3 megapixels. And in fact, you could even print billboards with 20 megapixels, as billboards are designed to be seen from a distance anyway, so it's not like anybody stands right in front of it staring at each pixel. Pictures though are sharp, although of course that depends more on the lens, but they do give nice detail. And as I mentioned earlier, the colors are nice and can all be tweaked anyway in the settings. If you wanted less saturation or whatever, that's all available in the menu. There is a HDR mode, which works by taking multiple quick shots at different exposures and then stitching them together real quick in camera to give you a nice high dynamic range image. The most exciting thing about this camera though is the 80 megapixel mode. That's right, 80 megapixels. So how do you get 80 megapixels out of a 20 megapixel sensor? I hear you ask. Well, that's simple. What they do is they take advantage of the in-body image stabilizer, and what they do is when you've got it in 80 megapixel mode, when you press the shutter button, it will take multiple images and it'll move the sensor around slightly each time. And then in camera, it'll stitch them all together and give you a high quality 80 megapixel image. But there is two downsides to this. One, you have to use a tripod because the camera has to stay perfectly still while it does it. And two, there can't be any moving objects in your shot, otherwise they'll obviously be moving while they're taking the multiple images and there'll be some ghosting. Although they have reduced it in a recent update, I still would recommend it's just for landscape shots or inanimate objects. And of course, keep in mind that these images are big. They are like, I think they were around 30 megapixel big. I don't know, but they're big. Alright, we also have 4K and 6K photo mode. And this is so cool. The way this works is once you've got it in that mode, you press the shutter. This is the basic rundown. There's a few different options here, but this is basically what you can do. You press the shutter, it'll take 4K or 6K, whatever you set it to, video, and record 18 megapixel images on each frame, and you can do it up to I think 30 frames per second. So we'll save 30 frames at 18 megapixel images each, and then you can in camera cycle through those images and find the one you want and save it as an image. Sounds a bit like a novelty, but it works really well. You can also set it to start recording before you even press the shutter. So if you're trying to film, I don't know, a bird taking off, flapping his wings, obviously the bird is going to be quicker than you are. So as soon as he starts flapping his wings and you press the shutter, it would have recorded about a second before you press that button, so it would catch it taking off. Awesome, or what? Alright, switching to video mode. There's a lot of picture profiles with this camera, including Cine-like, which is kind of obviously more dynamic range. So you can use it, I suppose, to color correct in post. But unfortunately, and this is the thing about this camera, is it does not come with a vlog or any log. You have to pay extra and download and install that yourself. I think it's around 80 bucks. So that sucks, Panasonic, why you couldn't include a vlog in this camera, even if it's just one. You know, Sony does. They put S-Log in all their mirrorless cameras pretty much, and there's nothing in this one. I understand they want to kind of protect their GH5 range, but let's be fair, let's just stick it in here and let's get going. So the G9 used to be a photography camera. That's how it was marketed, but not so much anymore. It's had a recent update in November 2019, which stuck a lot of extra video features in totally free as well, so that I will applaud you, Panasonic, for that. So as of now, the video options are 4K 60 frames per second, 4K 50 frames per second, 4K 30 frames per second, 4K 25 frames per second, that's what this is, and 4K 24 frames per second, FHD in 60 frames, 50 frames, 30 frames, and 25 frames per second. All of the above is recorded internally at 8-bit 420. I can also record externally at 10-bit 422. And in FHD you can go as high as 180 frames per second using the high speed mode. Since the November update, you can now record internally at 10-bit with hybrid log gamma in 4K 24, 25 and 30 frames per second in HEVC mode. Also in the body of this camera is a in-body image stabilizer, which means it's a mechanical stabilizer that moves the image sensor around as to counter move against your shaky hand, so the video comes out nice and smooth even without trying. Alright, this is a quick walk and talk vlog test. This is me walking with the camera, no stabilizer at all, and also no microphone at all, just a built-in camera mic. I've got it set to +6 decibels, which is the highest level it goes. It's relatively quiet, there's some birds and background traffic, but otherwise just me up here. So this is a test for the mic, camera, and that's about it. Oh, and the stabilizer. And if you nail the ninja walk, you can easily obtain gimbal-like smoothness with this camera. It is awesome. And if you use an optically stabilized lens on top of that, you are golden. Winter, winter, winter. Winter is coming. Ain't nothing we can do about it. So wrapping up, I will say that I love this camera. It is a fantastic piece of kit. Whether you are a YouTuber or a photographer or a videographer or whatever, it is a great little kit to get. It's not too bulky, it's not too small, it's kind of in between. The audio's good on it as well. Although for these videos I am using a Zoom H5 with a shotgun mic just because I don't have to wear my lavalier anymore. So that's great. Awesome. Cool. But there's tons of options on this camera and chances are it's going to be better than whatever you've got right now. Unless you're a top pro. But I can't be happy with it. As I said, I bought this on the 28th of December. Well, I ordered it on the 28th. It turned up on the 29th. And by the second week of January, I sold both my other cameras, so they're both gone and I'm literally left with one camera. And I haven't only had one camera for many years. I've always had at least two, especially being a content creator myself, but I'm now down to one camera. And I would say I'm gutted, but I'm really not. It's an awesome camera. So anyway, I'm out. I have been me, you are you, whoever you are, wherever you are. We shall see each other again, I'm sure. Bye bye. Tra for now. Tra for now.